Hello, my friend. You're tuned in once again to Danespirations, where I share my highlights and learnings every week from the books that I've been reading and from the lectures from my classes. This week focused more on. There's just so many things, I don't know where to start. But I guess it still is consistent with the things that I've been learning from last week about the need to belong, about having emotions, and about discovering yourself. I guess I want to start with what I've been learning about relationships and the need to belong. So, not just in the Bible, but even in the studies, psychology also proves that everyone needs relationships. Everyone needs a sense of belonging. So if you've ever wondered why, you might be wondering, why is it that when I leave this particular place, you've left your friends, or maybe you're separated from close loved ones, you feel anxiety, you feel like sad. So I think, and as I've been reading about these things, like especially the article that is titled "The Need to Belong," everyone feels much more happier whenever they have close and intimate relationships, which is why a lot of people who usually have suicidal tendencies or who are lonely and depressed are actually those who might not have the social ties or the social relationships that they need, because they think that life is like there's nothing in it for them in life anymore, because they don't have anyone to run to, they don't have anyone to cling, or they don't have anything to look forward to in life. So the need to belong is really a need of everybody, whether it's in your work, whether it's in your personal life. And we're not just talking about belongingness, or we're not just talking about relationships that involves like having small talks. I mean, you can have a lot of friends and relationships where you don't have constant bond with them, you just talk to them casually. But what we're talking about here is everyone is in need of intimate, deep, and constant relationships that show care. So like there are examples that show here how married people who have like distant husbands or distant wives are more miserable than those who are single. So like we can really say that even our relationships matters. We just don't engage in this kind of relationship, but it really matters if you have people who are also like reciprocal people. Like you're not just the one always on the giving end, but they're also the one who gives back or also gives to you. So that's one. It's important to realize that as human beings, we are created as relational beings, as God is relational. God, you know how he created Eve for Adam, how he created just imagine if Adam was just alone in the world, right? So it's intimately in us that we really need people. So I guess also as future counselors, as ministers, pastors, missionaries, they are in need of acceptance. They are also in need of that's why maybe a lot of missionaries, or especially people who work in the helping service or people helping ministries, usually they are the ones who experience burnouts because they often give more and then they don't get to receive much of what they need. And that's why also why counseling or therapies are very beneficial for human beings, because that's when they are shown acceptance and sympathy, especially those who are, depressed, and those maybe a lot of people also, especially let's say just example, right, like criminals, or sometimes a lot of people who does criminal work or who does crimes are usually the ones who do not feel belonged, or they don't have anyone, they don't have any support that they get. So that's the tendency why they involve. So okay, that's just an example. Okay, then you'll also realize and notice that even in schools, you have organizations, different organizations that you can join into, because people have different interests and they want to be with people that have the same interests. Even when it even goes the same with fraternities or sororities, right? Even though sometimes, not all, but maybe some fraternities can be bad for them, but the sense that they just feel like there's a brotherhood or they belong to this kind of group makes them want to to join it. So yeah, I just realized how people are really all in need of belongingness, of acceptance and love. And perhaps maybe a lot of people are depressed and they are lonely now, or they are detached because when they grew up, most of them may not have experienced the nurture that they needed from their caregivers. And so I've learned also that caregivers, usually why we are how we're responding or acting like right now at presently is because maybe you learned it when you were still little. Like, for example, you tend to be more depressed, you tend to be more lingering in this kind of emotion. So studies say that when you have this kind of emotion, we don't maybe we have learned it from our caregivers. So let's say your mother or someone who took care of you when you were just 1 year old mostly showed miserable or a depressing mood all the time. So sometimes you also learn your emotions. And talking about emotions, as I was reading the book Wounded Healer, and also Anatomy of the Soul, emotions are not exactly bad. Okay, so like what I mentioned last week, one of my highlights is that emotions are not bad in themselves. Emotions are actually helpful tools that can be used by God to let us know that there's something wrong with us. So yeah, sometimes we see and perceive emotions as they're bad, or sometimes especially in our culture, we think, or we don't have the freedom to feel sad or angry because we think that those emotions are not welcomed or are bad in themselves. Especially in Christian circles, sometimes Christians can always emphasize rejoice always. It says in the Bible that you should always thank God and rejoice, but actually it's good that we be reminded to rejoice, but it also says in the Bible, and even God and Jesus would show negative emotions such as sadness, anger. How God regretted, how Jesus wept. So those are just examples that negative emotions should be welcomed, and we should not be ashamed of having feelings of sadness, because sometimes those are like signposts and opportunities for us to know what's happening inside us. So how will we know that we're doing fine if we don't attend to our emotions? Then negative emotions, yes, are welcomed, and then as you deal with negative emotions, the more you don't suppress them, the more you let them out and enable people to support you, to bring encouragement to you, the more that you would be able to deal with those negative emotions and experience the healing that you need. And I also discovered that sometimes people feel guilty about being sad or being angry or having other negative emotions, because when they were younger, other people might have responded harshly to them. Like maybe, for example, a mother would say, "Don't cry," or a mother would say, "It's bad to cry. You shouldn't cry. You should always be strong." So when that person grows up and experiences those sad emotions, then that person would feel guilty, that because he thinks or she thinks that feeling, that emotion is not accepted. So for that person, or for that person to experience healing in that area, he or she needs to come into contact with people who would accept him even if he shows that emotion. So for example, in therapy, in counseling sessions, which it's so important that counselors show sympathy and compassion, regardless what this person has gone through, because it is when this person feels heard and this person has shown his negative emotions, then the counselor would accept that these emotions, then that's when he experiences another pattern. So yeah, I'm getting mixed up also with other readings, our brain functions also, we have wirings in which our emotions or our responses can be automatic responses because of what was passed on to us when we were younger. So it really takes a lot of self-awareness. It takes a lot of dealing with our mental capacity, or dealing with our inner self, so we would be able to approach things more healthy. I've also learned about I've read a portion about self-care, burnout, frustration, that in this one book, and it says here that we really need self-care. We need to learn how to take care of ourselves, so that even for counselors, right, we cannot always give without really taking. So in order for you to feel others, you'd also really need to feel yourselves. And then I also came across this very helpful technique of how you can, how we have negative feelings, right? And the reason why we have negative feelings is because it maybe is from the reason why, or maybe it's because we have negative thinking. And then here there's this technique that how you can deal with negative thinking. It has self-statement, it has disputation, and constructive belief. So for example, The self statement is I should always be available for anyone who needs me. If I'm not, this shows that I'm not a caring person. So usually the reason why we're so stressed and we always worry so much is because of our distorted thinking. So we might have that kind of statement. So whenever we have those kinds of self-defeating statements about us, whenever we feel inadequate, or whenever we feel those, very harsh or, unrealistic things, because we how we usually think about the worst case scenario, what we do is we challenge those thoughts and turn them into constructive belief. So let's say that statement I mentioned earlier, the disputation of that is, why must I always be available? I must stop telling myself that if I am not always there when a client wants me, I'm not a caring person. So the constructive belief is, although I want to be responsible, I want to set limits. Sometimes clients want and demand too much. So there it is, that when we experience such negative things about not doing well, like another example would be, oh, I should be able to do everything well. Either I am the perfect helper or I'm worthless. So usually you would always try to challenge these kinds of thoughts, like, where did I pick up this belief? Does it make sense that I should always do everything well? Can I do something less than perfectly and still be outstanding in other areas? So the constructive belief there is, although I like doing well, I can at times accept imperfection in myself. I can tolerate mistakes. I do not have to be perfect to be capable. Perfection is an unrealistic idea. Yeah, that was actually very helpful for me to realize that not all thoughts should be welcome. So in order for me to not accept or not engage in too much negativities, then yeah, that's one way to deal with it. And then what else? I guess we can also go back to what I mentioned about what's that again? Emotion. Oh yeah, about the wounded healer. A minister, it says there, a minister or a leader is more than having the skills and accomplishments. Sometimes we think that being a minister means that you have to know it all, you have to know the Bible very well, you have to be good at speaking or preaching. But actually, an effective minister is someone who can really sympathize, who can really go into a person and make them feel that, oh, you understand what I go through, you know how it is to be like me. So I discovered that pain, suffering, and being wounded is not a bad thing, but it can actually be used for your advantage, so you can minister well to others. Because when you experience such woundedness and brokenness, other people who experience that would make them feel welcomed, would make them be more vulnerable, especially when the leader or the minister is vulnerable about his weaknesses, about his struggles. The more it will be ministered, the more that a person would feel more ministered to. Yeah, that's why I guess the book is called Wounded Healer, because even if we are wounded, our woundedness, our brokenness can be a source of healing for others. So yeah, let's be wounded healers. Everyone, I believe, has brokenness in their lives, or everyone may have experienced pain or some sort of discomfort in their lives, and so everyone can relate to it. And if you can relate to it, you can also be an effective minister because of that. What else have I been reading? When it comes to the skills as a counselor, So, yeah, from one of our lectures, it says that counseling is really more about listening, but there are times that you would also educate the person. Then, what else? Oh, when it comes to dealing with clients, or like as we relate it to real life situations for future counselors, we cannot avoid difficult clients where they are resistant. They think that there's nothing wrong with them. People or a family member might just have referred them that they need counseling, but they don't believe in themselves that they need help. So in real life situations, that's also true. We can experience difficult people along the way. We can experience people who think that they're all right, and you're the one who's always wrong. And so when we approach those kinds of people as ministers, as counselors, as an ordinary person, we approach them in such a way that we don't judge them. But what we do is we want to let them feel heard. We want to listen to them, because if you're going to correct them right away and confront them with truth, like you're going to point out what's wrong with them, then the more that the relationship might not happen, or your working relationship might not work out. So the key really is to seeing people with compassion and patience. And we can all attest that even us, right, when we look at ourselves, we don't always have it all together. We have a lot of improvements to do in ourselves. So if God can be so patient with us, then why can't we be patient with other people as well? So the key is, those people, like maybe abusers, those bullies, they may have done harm to other people. So you might say that they don't deserve the compassion, but when you look at it, maybe they've also gone through brokenness and pain, because as they say, hurt people. And the moment that someone actually sympathizes with their brokenness and their pain, the more they would realize that, oh, maybe the reason why I'm like this is because this is what I've experienced in the past. So we have to recognize that and realize that we are not capable of changing people, because that is the work of the Holy Spirit. That is God's work to change people. But we do. Okay. But we do have the influence or the power to influence these people to change. My mic. Oh, I just ran out of batteries. But anyway. So yeah, that's more about what I've just gone through the past week. We have to learn, like they say that the therapist is really the best therapy, more than gaining the skills, more than having a degree or knowing, like let's say having the skills of learning or asking good questions, having the right posture. But it's the being that's more important when you're ministering to people, how you're able to sympathize, how you're able to be compassionate towards these people. So there, yeah. I guess at the end of the day, we can say that thank God, praise God, because in ourselves, we are not capable of transforming ourselves, but because God is there with us, He is the one who will complete the work He has started in us. And as an encouragement also, we are all in a spiritual journey of becoming Christ-like. We may recognize a lot of deficiencies, a lot of negative things about ourselves, or but yeah, at the end of the day, God loves us the same, and He can use our weaknesses, our deficiencies, so we can bring God the ultimate glory. Well, that's probably it. I guess the rest I can share with you in other times, but what else? Yeah, that's it. I actually want to add just shortly about again community, right? Community. You know how the saying goes, or a verse says that confession. When you confess your sins to one another, you experience you're being healed, right? So I guess the importance of the community there is that usually sin thrives in secrecy. So the more you just own it to yourselves, the more that you might not experience the healing that you need from a specific sin or the specific attitude. So I really encourage you and encourage us that we constantly be with people who can know us intimately and deeply and be in this journey of healing together. And yeah, you may have friends who have maybe experienced loneliness and depression. Maybe you too have experienced it. So would you maximize that time and use that time, or use this opportunity so you can build strong bonds with other people, because we all need to belong and be accepted. So let's reflect Christ's love to others. Thank you so much for listening. God bless you.